Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the May 18th, 2023 meeting of the Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency Board of Directors. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you. Director Desmond?
Here.
Director Frost? Here. Director Hume?
Here.
Chairman Kennedy?
Here.
Director Nava?
Here.
Director Jennings?
Here.
Director Kaplan?
Here.
Director Talamentes?
Here.
Director Holloway?
Here.
Director Johns?
Here.
Director Alves?
Here.
Director Baines?
Here.
Director Koenig?
Present.
We have a 13-member quorum.
You want to read your announcement?
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting of SAFCA is being broadcast live and will be replayed on Metro Cable Channel 14 on Saturday, May 20th at 2 p.m. And the meeting will also be available on SAFCA's website within 48 hours after the meeting. Members of the audience who would like to address the board should fill out a speaker form. They're located here and in the back if you have not already given me one. When addressing the board, please identify yourself for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Begin. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that takes us to public comment for items that are not on the agenda. The public is free to comment. If you've turned in speaker slips, let me remind you, if comments are being made that are on an item that's on the agenda, I will politely remind you that that item will be heard at a later time in this meeting. If it's not on the agenda, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. All right, first speaker is Michael Lopez, Sr.
Good afternoon, Chair, Directors. My name is Michael Lopez, Sr., and I'm a resident in the Valley View Acres community, which is in the North Natomas area. And I recently found out that we're going to be impacted by the flood control project, which is greatly needed. But sadly, I found out that it's going to impact a number of community members of mine, and a large portion of their property is going to be taken from them. I felt that there should have been some kind of community meeting or public awareness to let us have further comment, but I'm going to make my comments right now. I'm concerned about that because our community has a serious dumping problem, and by creating property from my neighbors within that area, it's going to create a more serious dumping problem. Also, it could cause a serious problem with our unhoused community moving in once that established levees are established. So I'm against. I think I'm for the project because we need the protection, but I think there's a smarter way of doing it. I think that there could be the slurry project from the NEM deck, where the previous project ended, and take it to the Sorrento Road at East Levee. And then everything north of that can be done with levees, impacting no residents in our community. So I hope that that can be done, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. I'm not ignoring you. I'm taking notes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Lopez, Jr. I think I know your father.
Yeah. My name is Michael Lopez Jr. I'm also a property owner and community member of the Valley View Acres. Here to speak about the project information that we've heard about the acquisition of additional properties from neighbors. There's a couple. I do agree that there is some levee management. Obviously, this project's been going on for as long as I can remember. And it's necessary, but to a certain extent, it seems that this newer area or this newer part of the project is exceeding beyond previous scope of the project before. If you look at what has been done from the pump house south, they did not need to take, I don't think any neighbors were impacted. They just took the area that was already there existing. The new, as I've been, it's been explained to me, the additional amount that's being taken is a greater portion of private property. And to me, that creates a problem because it creates a place where homeless individuals can inhabit. The dumping is an issue. Also, it's going to reduce property values. I mean, I know that this is, probably something that wouldn't impact everyone equally, but it still impacts. And one of the things that, I've got a limited amount of time here, so I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible, but in thinking about what I've come to learn about and how I came to learn about it, I didn't know anything about this until I heard from a neighbor. And it kind of looks like a land grab. And so I looked up land grab, and one of the things that I came across, and this is from Oxfam's website, they're an international group, but that they define land grabs as land deals that are force people from their homes, private property, without free, informed consent, and result in people being removed. Now, I understand that no one's going to be removed from their home, but they are going to lose a portion of their property. And to me, that is a concern. I looked at your guys' website, and for those who don't read legalese, I have a legal background, so I could read and understand quite a bit, but even still, it's not for the average person. So that's a concern of mine. I just wanted to make sure you guys had my input on that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, Mr. Lopez. Before I read the next names, I want to let the public know that when an item's not on the agenda under the Brown Act, we can't get into a discussion about it from the dais here. But board members are listening, taking notes, as is staff, and there will be follow-up of some kind. So do not judge our silence as being indifference. Thank you. Angela Angel.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Angela Angel. I live at 1600 Sorrento Road near the intersection of East Levee and Sorrento. I've lived there over 25 years. I am here today to let this board know that I do not approve of the annexation of the land beyond 100 feet from the center of the Levee Road. Just like the rest of Sacramento, we have had to deal with our share of unhoused people here at Valley View Acres. I'm trying to speak slow because I always talk fast, they say, so I'm trying my best to
You're doing fine.
Okay. If this board pushes this land grab through, in the vacant area will soon be area run by the unhoused. Also, it will take more opportunity for illegal dumping. The residents in Valley View Acres are 100% in favor of levee improvements. However, we do take offense to the city officials taking advantage of our rural agriculture community by annexing land for any improvement projects that is not even necessary at this point in time. Please only annex the land that is necessary for the improvement of your project. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Glenn, I believe it's Chidaris.
Good afternoon, Board. I live at 7281 Natomas Road, and the new Natomas Basin project is going to take my home and about an acre of my property. You guys have made me an offer at $390,000 for an acre and a house on it in California, and the house is in great condition. The property that I'm losing is 165 feet from the middle of the road, and the levee is 4 feet high. Down the street, the levee is 20 feet high, and you guys are taking 155 feet from them. I've met with engineers on this project. One of them actually used to work for you guys and now is retired. And the issue is you're not raising our levee, you're just doubling it because of pressure, but you're not having the railroad raise their side. And there's also piping that goes through so that if water comes up, it floods the fields. So there's actually no point in raising the levee. But I have stood up and said, look, I don't want to fight the levee project. All I want to do is be able to build a house back on my property. And you guys send a guy out named Steve Harris that acts as a friend. And literally every time I talk to that guy, he says, there's nothing I can do. I can't show you the project. I can't do this. I can't do that. So part of these deals is good faith, and good faith is an important term. And the interesting thing about good faith is the house next to me sold right before you guys did your appraisal. When your gentleman came out to do the appraisal, he was handicapped, so he couldn't really walk around the property. I helped him as much as I could. And the interesting thing is your guys' packet that you sent out was actually done before the appraisal on the property was actually done. So the other issue that I have is right now is the most expensive time to build in the state of California. It is $500 a square foot to build a house out there, on top of a septic system that has to be specialized, and I've already paid to have it engineered at $8,000 just for the engineering. It's going to cost $111,000 for me to put a new system in. And when I went and talked to the county to show them where I wanted to put the new house, they told me now I'm going to have to replace the well because it doesn't have enough pressure. So when I came back to you guys with an offer, I came back at $1.1 million. And that does sound crazy, but the problem is when something is broken, a lot of times it costs more money to fix. And Steve Harris just sits there and goes, well, how do we explain it to the taxpayers? So I'm here today to explain it to you guys, how to explain it to the taxpayers. You took somebody's house. You should replace a house. I'm not asking to get rich. I own multiple businesses. That's not about that. What it's about is putting my property back together that my family has run a multi-million-dollar business off of for years. Or the other option, which I told them, which I legally can do, is under eminent domain statutes and laws, I can force you to take the whole property, and I can also force you to move the business. And then everything gets calibrated from how long it takes me to get from point A to point B, to shipping, to changing all my marketing, and everything that goes with it. So I'm asking for a simple issue to just put my property back together. But I'm telling you guys right now.
Can you wrap up, sir?
Yeah, I am.
Thank you.
I'm not the guy. I will go to the ends with this whole thing. I will not stop. If I have to go to court and have to hire a lawyer, I will sell properties to make sure that I go to court and I hire engineers and this whole thing gets changed. So I'm asking you to just do the right thing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the members of the public coming in. And as I said, please make note that this board takes your comments very seriously.
Chair, may I make a brief comment, please?
Oh, yes, sir.
So I'd like to say thanks to the folks that testified. Obviously, because of the Brown Act, we can't talk about what the issues that were brought up, but I do want to extend my appreciation to folks that are my neighbors from Valley View Acres. I know many of you you represent a small portion, I think, of folks that have voiced concerns similar to yours. So I just wanted to express my gratitude and appreciate you coming out, because I know it's not easy at 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Abdus. Next on the agenda is consent matters.
Items 1 through 11 are in order.
Are there any questions from the board on any item of consent?
Move to approve, Conant.
Okay, we have a motion by, I'm going to go with Conant. and a second by Desmond. Is there any member of the public that would like to address an item that is on consent?
Did you miss one? The
I
last
have one for item 15.
The last one I handed you.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was a duplication. There's two of them. I have Jack Broadbent and Jack Broadbent.
No.
Well, you're not Angela Angel.
Jack Broadbent.
Oh,
And Terry Horst.
well, Mr. Horst, I believe you're on the agenda later.
Yeah.
So that would not be for this item. That's item 15. Okay, so you're speaking on, okay. Thank you. I'll get the hang of this eventually.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for the confusion.
That's all right.
I did put in a note electronically, and maybe that's why you've got two different notes.
Okay.
My name's Jack Broadbent. I live at 8665 River Road, Sacramento, California, down in the neighborhood of Freeport. And I wasn't going to speak today, with the exception of Patrick. I recognize you on the board and would welcome you and really would appreciate if you could come to the community, especially including me, and let the community know what Contract 4 is about. We've had meetings. People have no idea what's going on. The marinas, the bait stores, the local wedding venues, they're all being impacted, and they haven't had any communication on the project. So I'd really appreciate if you could come meet with us. The other piece I wanted to let you all know, you had an internal meeting last month on my property. You were going to go through a resolution of necessity. I appreciate you holding off on that. I've been working diligently with SAFCA and various people with the agency trying to come to an agreement. It's not easy. It's very complicated to try and figure this whole process out as a homeowner. So I appreciate all of your understanding and recognition that we're people and we're trying to figure out how to support the efforts of protecting Sacramento. And it's a difficult process, as you guys, I know you know. So thank you very much. And I look forward to meeting you, Patrick.
Contact information is on your speakerphone.
Awesome. Thank you.
It is not.
Let me
Yeah, way I can reach out to
just
you.
slide you a piece of paper. I'll do it here. Will do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. Okay, well, is there any member of the public that has any comment on an item that's on consent? If not, we have a first and a second. Please call the roll.
Director Desmond? Aye. Director Frost? Frost. Director Hume? Aye. Director Kennedy?
Aye.
Director Nava?
Aye.
Director Jennings?
Yes.
Director Talamantes?
Aye.
Director Kaplan?
Yes.
Director Holloway? Aye. Director Johns?
Yes.
Director Avdis?
Aye.
Director Baines?
Aye.
Director Conant?
Aye.
Motion passes with 13-member approval.
Thank you. Next item. We will be recessing into closed session if you can read those titles into the record.
Government Code Section 54956.8, conference with real property negotiators, property at 7311 East Levy Road, AP, Sacramento County APN 201-0190-038 and 201-0190-039, negotiating party Terrence Wells. Item number 2 is Government Code Section 54956.8, conference with real property negotiators, property at 7623 Natomas Road, Sutter County APN 35271-021, negotiating party I'm sorry if I say this wrong, Abed Rashid and Nazrai Abed. Item number 3 is Government Code Section 54956.8, conference with real property negotiators, property at Riego Road, Sutter County APN 35260-002, negotiating party Tom Wynn and George Carpenter. Item number 4, Government Code Section 54956.8, conference with real property negotiators, property at 5401 East Levy Road, Sacramento County APN 2260020-004, negotiating party Michael Unzueta and Eliza Unzueta. Item number 5, Government Code Section 54956.8, Conference with Real Property Negotiators, property at 5525 East Levee Road, Sacramento County, APN number 226-0010-004, negotiating party Terry Horst.
Thank you very much. With
And the
that,
directors will recess to hearing room 2.
Before we do that, I just want to announce
Director
that
Avdis.
recusing myself from the Carpenter Wynn property matter and then also the Terry Horse matter. Terry's my neighbor.
so we will take those 2 items in closed session at the end of closed session for the convenience of Director Avdis.
Thank you.
All right, we're in recess. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Director Desmond. Here. Director Frost. Here. Director Hume. Here. Chairman Kennedy.
Here.
Director Nava. Here. Director Jennings.
Yes, here.
Director Kaplan. Director Talamentes. Here. Vice Chairman Holloway.
Here.
Director Johns.
Here.
Director Avdis.
Here.
Director Baines. Here. Director Conant.
Here.
We have a 13-member quorum.
And the chair is here.
You were called.
I just want to, for the record, say that Mr. Horst, who spoke earlier, and I had suggested he wait until his item came up. He had to leave. I was not aware of that. But he has agreed to provide communications in another manner that will be made not only part of the public record, but also available to all board members. All right, council.
Wanted to report for the record that Director Avdis recused himself and was not present for the discussions relating to APNs 35-260-002 or APN 226-0010-004. Nothing else to report at this time.
Thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is the Executive Director's Report for May 18th, 2023.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Rick Johnson. I wanted to talk to you about a few things. We've been seeing a lot of activity this year, but what I have up here are 6 current construction projects and that are rebuilding the entire system for Sacramento. And the top one I wanted to use as an example. We got that authorized in '96. It's basically rebuilding the levees on the American River. It took 20 years from the authorization and 18 years from our cost share agreement because we were doing the normal core process of getting a little bit of money each year. If you go down to the bottom 2 there, Natomas is the second up there. We're going to anticipating get that done in 2025. So that would only been 11 years from authorization and 9 from the agreement. And part of the reason for that was we went ahead and built a good part of it ahead of that. And then also we've been able to get large federal funding the last few years. And then the bottom one down below there, Common Features 2016, and these are much bigger projects. I mean, 1.5 billion, 1.7 billion. That one again is 11 years and 8 years, and that's because we were able to get full federal and state funding at once, which allowed us to move it forward. So I wanted to just point out the difference, when we go the old way into what we've been able to accomplish with the lately here. So I did want to show this one. I had done some calculation till the end of 2017 from 1986. For 32 years there, we put about collectively federal, state, local, about $2 billion into the system. We just since 2018 till now have received about $2.5 billion in federal funds, which has generated about another $1.5 billion in state and local. So we've, in the last few years, basically doubled what it took the first 32 years. So we've really been fortunate to have at all levels, state, federal, and local, the realization that we needed to fix our system here. So just visually, I wanted to show that these again are our 6 projects. I colored each one to show the part of the system that it covered. And I started in 2005. That's when we started the South Sacramento Streams Group. We actually started work on the American River a few years ahead of that. But jumping ahead 5 years to 2010, you can see that continuing work on the American River, we started work up at the Folsom JFP, and SAFCA started advancing the work in Natomas by that part. Then jumping ahead another 5 years to 2015, we had finished the work up on in the Natomas area, and then the other projects were still under construction. Then jumping ahead another 5 years to 2020, we finally finished the Joint Federal Project by then. We finished the American River work by then. When I say we, it's a combination core projects and SAFCA and the state working together. And at this point, we had started work on the dam raise, and the Corps had started their projects in Natomas and started the first work on Common Features 2016. Then I'll go yearly from there. So then a year later, you can see a lot more work in Natomas and Common Features 2016 down along the Sacramento River there. Another year, more work. And then this next year, I wanted to show everything that's been awarded this year. So we've got all the contracts awarded up at the dam raise now, except for Dike 7. The only reason that's held off is we had air quality issues, so we had to push that off a year. Pretty much everything has been awarded on Common Features 2016, except for a couple of erosion contracts and some mitigation. All the major areas are under construction. And then in Natomas, everything's awarded except for F and G. We do have a couple of windows like Highway 99. Those will all be awarded here in the next year. So I just wanted to show that. And then we've had some awards just since our last board meeting. Dikes 1 through 6 up at Folsom was awarded May 1st for about $27 million. And then this is the big one, widening the Sacramento Weir and bypass was awarded May 3rd for about $173 million. So I put this graphic together. We've had 7 contract awards in the first just a couple of days over 4 months of the year for almost $500 million, $460 million. So just trying to let you see how much work is progressed and how fast we're getting there. Pretty much the system is, most of the system now has the construction contracts either done or under construction. So with that, that's all I had. I'll take any questions.
Okay, any questions? Any members of the public have any questions on the Executive Director's report? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
Next item is information, update on efforts to adjust the date of attainment of urban level of flood protection for cities in the Central Valley.
All right. So, thank you. So just a quick reminder, SB 5 was passed about 2007 that requires minimum 200-year level of protection by 2025, and the floodplain managers have to do adequate report every year that contains 2 items. One is a schedule showing that the work will be done by 2025, and then demonstrate adequate progress physically and fiscally towards that. And the result, if the consequence of not meeting that is the inability for the land use agencies to then go forward with any new construction or new building permits or construction. So just on our project, I put them up here just to demonstrate a third column over there from the left. To reach 200-year level protection, we don't need all of our projects done, just some of them. So we didn't need the South Sacramento Streams Group, the new spillway at Folsom, and the work on the American River. That work has all been completed. We did need that. We did need on the top, there are some features of the Common Features 2016, primarily the work along the Sacramento River, and that's all under construction, will be completed by 2025. And then we do need all the work on the Natomas Basin to get there. And so everything's in good shape, and we're expecting right now for F&G, if we can keep that on schedule, to make 2025. So I just wanted to make that aware for everybody. So there is, back in August, the board did give us a resolution directing us to go ahead and work with Stockton and West Sacramento. They were proceeding with looking at legislation to extend the deadline from 2025. We went ahead at the board's direction in case something happened to slow down F&G on Natomas and determine if it's prudent to move forward. So legislation has been drafted. Discussions happened with the state, both the administration and the legislature. The state has added a deadline to the legislation, or added a condition to the legislation of deadline that if the urban area seeks an extension, that they have to relieve the state of their flood liability. They have to take on the state liability there. So that's the condition the state's putting on extending the 2025. So we do currently have meetings with Sac County and City of Sacramento, and we'll be reaching out to Sutter County to set them up, just to make them aware of the legislation, where we stand in meeting the 2025 date, in case there's any interest for the city or the counties to join in. And so anyway, that was just an update on what we've been working with them on that. So see if there's any questions.
Director Abdus.
Thank you, Rick. Question, point of clarification on relative to the 200-year level and achieving that by 2025. Now, can you talk a little bit about how that relates to the 100-year? I know a lot of folks out in Natomas, obviously, is very important to them getting remapped out of the 100-year floodplain. Does that mean that that's going to happen prior to the 200-year determination?
Back when we did the A99 determination, we did not need to meet F&G to get to 100-year level protection. FEMA has since changed the rules on that. For an enclosed basin, they want all the work done. So F&G will be needed to be able to certify the FEMA 100-year.
So that will happen in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, we'll be ready to start the certification process after that, right?
Okay, so then the certification process itself is going to happen after 2025?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I have a couple of quick questions for you, Rick. But when you say that the liability is on the city and the county, what about construction plans and development plans that are in the city and county in these areas? Would that be affected?
So I hesitate being the lawyer to interpret the language.
So Jeremy.
Yeah, but it appears from reading it that it would have an impact on anything moving forward with new construction.
Well, I ask because we all remember what happened back, years ago, and what it did to Natomas.
Right.
So, okay.
Right.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Item number 14 is a public hearing, resolution of necessity number 2023049, continued from the November 17th, 2022 and February 16th, 2023 Board of Directors meeting, authorizing an eminent domain action to condemn certain real property interests for the Reach G component of Phase 4B of the Natomas Levee Improvement Project. Fee interest, electrical and communication facilities easement, and temporary construction easement acquisition over portions of Sacramento County Assessor Parcel Numbers 201-0190-038 and 201-0190-039. Property located at 7311 and 7495 East Levee Road, Rio Linda, California 95673. Property owner Terrence W. Wells.
Thank you, Lindy. Matt DeGroat, Real Estate Program Manager with Safeco. So as was mentioned, this is Resolution of Necessity number 2023-049. It's authorizing an eminent domain action to condemn real property over the property that was just described. So the property in question is located on East Levee Road between West Elkhorn Boulevard and West Alberta Road in the Natomas Basin area of Sacramento County, California. Acquisition of the property is required for the Natomas East Main Drainage Canal, West Levee, Reach G component of Phase 4B of the project. So here we have a map of the Natomas Levee improvement reaches. This is for the property is located in Reach G here, and that's right over there on the kind of the middle of the map on the right-hand side. Here we have a sketch showing the levee improvements along Reach G, which include installing cutoff walls and flattening of the landside levee slope, construction of seepage berms, relocation of conflicting utility infrastructure, construction of an operation and maintenance road on the landside toe of the levee, and the establishment of a flood control works protection zone. Here we have kind of a map of the project reach itself and the location of where the property is within that reach. So you can see the two APNs there that are shown on the map. That's the property in question. And here we have the property itself and the proposed acquisitions. So the red is the proposed fee acquisition area. There's also adjacent to that a proposed easement, electrical and communication facilities easement. And over that same area, there's also a temporary construction easement that covers that utility corridor and also kind of juts out a little bit there. So that's shown in blue, and it's wrapped around the yellow electrical easement. So attachments E through E3 on the staff report are the project description and necessity for acquisition, the environmental compliance documents and considerations in selecting mitigation sites, and design analysis for the relocated irrigation and drainage canals. On March 7th of 2022, Safeco did send a letter to the property owner advising him that the upcoming levee improvement projects will affect his property. On June 9th of 2022, Safeco sent a letter to the property owner advising him that Safeco was preparing an appraisal to acquire a portion of his property in fee, as well as an electrical and communication facilities easement. On September 7th of 2022, Safeco provided a formal offer to purchase the property rights, consisting of a fee interest over a portion of the property, a permanent electrical and communication facilities easement, and temporary rights required for the installation of fencing and driveway improvements. On October 27th of 2022, at this point, Safeco mailed a written notice to the owner of the property advising him that the board would hold a hearing on that date, on November 17th of 2022, to consider adopting a resolution of necessity to acquire the property rights by eminent domain. At that board meeting on November 17th, 2022, this board decided to continue the resolution of necessity to its February 16th, 2023 meeting to allow for the property owner to have more time to conduct his own appraisal of the property. On January 30th of 2023, at this point again, Safeco did mail another written notice to the owner advising him that this board would hold a hearing on February 16th of 2023 to consider the adoption of resolution of necessity to acquire the rights by eminent domain. At that February 16th board meeting, this board again decided to continue the resolution of necessity hearing to its May 18th, 2023, today, meeting to allow for the property owner more time to have his own appraisal conducted of the property. After that meeting, on April 7th of 2023, Safeco did send a letter to the owner that clarified Safeco's initial offer, and it described the temporary rights that were required for the installation of the fencing and driveway improvements as a temporary construction easement and then set a value for those rights. Attachment L to the staff report is a diary of the discussions between Safeco's right-of-way acquisition consultant and the owner, during which they discussed the potential effects of the project on the property and the requirement that the interests in the property would need to be acquired to support the project and the right-of-way acquisition process in general. So on May 1st, having not reached an agreement with the property owner, Safeco did mail another written notice to the owner advising him that this board would hold a meeting today at this time to consider the adoption of a resolution of necessity to acquire the property rights by eminent domain. So this slide just shows the exhibits that are attached to the resolution itself. Exhibits A and B are a description and plat of the fee acquisition area. Exhibit C and D is a description and a plat map of the proposed electrical communication facilities easement. And exhibits E and F is a description and plat map of the proposed temporary construction easement. So that's the end of the presentation. And I should note that even though we've not reached an agreement with this property owner right now, should this board choose to move forward with this resolution, it does in no way preclude us from stopping negotiation with him. And we will continue active negotiation with the property owner until the last moment possible.
Thank you, Mr. Groot. Director Hume.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to be clear that this is simply issuing the resolution of necessity in order to start the clock on the eminent domain proceedings. This is not necessarily moving to eminent domain itself, correct?
Yes, this is the resolution saying the property is necessary for the project. And then with this resolution, we can then file for the eminent domain proceedings to start.
Okay. And so to your point, we're going to continue good faith negotiations for as long as we possibly can before we have to actually file for eminent domain.
No, we will continue after we file. So this is just saying the property is necessary for the project. We will file for eminent domain if we can't reach an agreement in the next, few weeks or a month. It will work out that time frame. But even after we file that, we will continue to negotiate with this property owner all the way until a judgment is rendered by the courts. So this allows us to take a parallel path into the standard negotiations to ensure that we can deliver on our obligation to the Corps for the project.
Is it safe to say then that the actual eminent domain proceedings have a certain level of cost associated with them that might be able to be factored into avoiding that cost in order to negotiate on the front end?
Absolutely. That could be considered in some sort of settlement.
Okay. Well, then I would just like to say, I know we had the public comment from the one gentleman whose property this concerns. Did we have any other public comment on this item?
Not that I've received, no.
So I would just like to say, just so I'm on record, that obviously eminent domain is a tool of the government that ought to be used very judiciously. I think that flood control is certainly an opportunity where that is a concern to the general public, and certainly to the homeowners in that area, current and future, and that we have been told by the federal government what level of improvement is required, and we have been told by the state by what timeline that level needs to occur. I can say that there is repercussion, both from a development standpoint, but also from a flood liability standpoint. I don't want to speak for my other colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, but for this county supervisor, I have zero appetite of assuming that flood liability from the state at the county level. I would assume my colleagues up here from the city of Sacramento feel the same way for their agency. And so I really feel like this is a situation where we're kind of painted into a corner, and the clock is ticking from a different clock is ticking in order to have certain flood level protections completed by a certain year. So that being said, I recognize that eminent domain is never something to be taken lightly. but it is a negotiation process, and fair market value is paid and compensated for the property that will be taken. And to me, the best example of fair market value is willing seller, willing buyer, and that's what I'm hoping for in all of these cases.
Thank you, Director. Director Abdus.
Thanks for those comments, Director Hume. I certainly want to echo the fact that eminent domain is an immense power wielded by government and should be, when used very narrowly and focused and surgically. Obviously, balancing private property rights that are an important part of our, civil society, cornerstone of our system of government and economic system, but understanding that the good of the many sometimes requires taking of property. I agree. No interest in delaying, obviously, passing this resolution of necessity. Don't want to delay the project. But I do want to say that I'm not happy about the timing and having to be painted into a corner to make a decision like this. There is a high bar that needs to be established to identify the scope of the take, and I don't feel that has been met. However, given where we are, given the timing of the project, I'll support the resolution of necessity, but reluctantly so.
Thank you very much. Director Baines.
Thank you. I joined the board a little late, so I do have a couple quick questions regarding the actual necessity part of it. So Reach H, we did not acquire the footprint that was similar to what we're looking at right now. Is that correct?
I think John Bassett, Director of Engineering, probably be better to answer that question.
Yes, in Reach H, it's much more heavily developed with small lot residential right up against the levee. The levee improvements in that area were a cutoff wall as opposed to the widening adjacent levee and flattening the landside slope. So the acquisitions, we did acquire quite a bit of property along there, not quite as wide as the acquisitions in Reach F and G, but it's because the Corps of Engineers had to design a different project.
So do we know if the Corps did consider cutoff wall for Reach G and F as well, or is it completely their decision?
They did consider that. Again, the nature of the underlying foundations and the height of the levee is much taller in Reach H than it is in a lot of the Reach G area. So the flood levels are a bit lower also because the Reach G area is north of the Reach F and G area is north of the Natomas East Main Drainage Canal stormwater pumping station. So the flood elevations are lower. That pumping station prevents high water in the American River from translating north of the pumping station. So the design considerations are much different. The ground surfaces are much different, and the underlying soils are much different in that area.
And one last question is, most of the property I've seen, we're trying to go 100 feet from the center of the levee. This particular property, it seems like it shows 150 feet.
Most of the area north of Sorrento Road is 150 feet from the center line of the levee, which translates for most of those properties to a 100-foot wide fee acquisition area. So south of Sorrento Road, because you're transitioning from open agriculture into ranchette area, some of those areas, like the next item on the board, is a narrower acquisition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, is there any member of the public that has signed up to speak at this time?
I do not have any.
All right. It's the will of the board.
I will go ahead and make the motion to move forward with staff's recommendation.
Director Kennedy, if I can interrupt, sorry. We do need to open a hearing.
Yes. We'll open up the public hearing at this time. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board at this time? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. I believe Director Hume?
Is there anything that you need to read, or can I just move staff's recommendation?
You can move staff's recommendation.
Okay, then I will do so.
Is there a second? Conant second. Please call the roll.
Director Desmond? Aye. Director Frost? Aye. Director Hume? Aye. Director Kennedy?
Aye.
Director Nava?
Aye.
Director Jennings?
Yes.
Director Kaplan? Yes. Director Talamentes? Director Holloway? Aye. Director Johns?
Yes.
Director Abadis?
Aye.
Director Baines?
Aye.
Director Conant?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes with 13-member approval.
Thank you.
Our next item is a public hearing of necessity number 2023050, authorizing an eminent domain action to condemn certain real property interests for the Reach G component of Phase 4B of the Natomas Levee Improvement Project. Fee interest and temporary construction easement acquisition over portions of Sacramento County Assessor's parcel number 22600100004, property at 5525 East Levee Road, Sacramento, California, 95835. Property owner Thomas L. Horst and Terry L. Horst, trustee of the 2006 Agnes M. Horst Family Grantor Irrevocable Trust.
Thank you. Director Abdus.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just need to announce my recusal from this item because of a conflict of interest, because the Horst residence is adjacent to my residence.
Thank you, Director.
And I will be exiting the deliberation room. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Abdus.
Thank you.
Please
Good
proceed.
afternoon, directors. Matt DeGroat, Real Estate Program Manager again. So this is for resolution of necessity number 2023-050, and it's authorizing an eminent domain action to condemn real property interests for the Reach G component of Phase 4B of the Natomas Improvement and Levee Project. So this property is located on East Levee Road on the land side of the Natomas East Drainage Canal in the Natomas Basin area of Sacramento County. Acquisition of the property is required for the NIMDEC West Levee Reach G component of Phase 4B of the project. Again, here we have the map of the Natomas Improvement Project reaches. This is, again, for Reach G of the project, which is toward the middle on the right-hand side of the map. Here again is a sketch showing the levee improvements along Reach G, which include installing cutoff walls and flattening the landside levee slope, construction of seepage berms, relocation of conflicting utility infrastructure, construction of an operation and maintenance road at the landside toe of the levee, and the establishment of a flood control works protection zone. Attachment C is, again, the kind of the project stationing map that shows the location of this property within that, and it's the APN that's designated toward the right-hand side of the exhibit. Here we have the proposed acquisition areas for this property. So again, the red is the fee acquisition area, and there are no utilities that need to be relocated for this location, so there is only a temporary construction easement shown in blue adjacent to that proposed fee acquisition area. So attachment E to E3 from the staff report is, again, the project description and necessity for the acquisition, environmental compliance documents and considerations in selecting the mitigation sites, and design analysis for the relocated irrigation and drainage canals. On March 7th of 2022, SAFCA sent a letter to the property owners advising them that the upcoming levee improvement projects will affect their property. On July 28th of 2022, SAFCA sent a letter to the property owners advising them that SAFCA was preparing an appraisal to acquire a portion of their property in fee. On January 6th of 2023, SAFCA provided a formal offer to purchase the property rights, which consisted of a fee interest over a portion of the property and temporary rights required for the installation of fencing and driveway improvements. At this point, on April 10th of 2023, with having not reached an agreement, on April 10th of 2023, Safeco sent a clarifying letter to the owners, clarifying Safeco's initial offer and described the temporary rights required for the installation of the driveway improvements and the temporary construction easements, and set a value for those rights. So at this point, having not reached an agreement with the owners, again, I'm ahead of myself, I apologize. Attachment J is a diary of the discussions between Safeco's right-of-way acquisition consultant and the owners, during which they discussed the potential effects of the project on the property and the requirement that the interest in the property would need to be acquired to support the project and the right-of-way acquisition process in general. And I forgot to advance the slides. Sorry about that. Okay, so again, having not reached an agreement with the property owners, on May 1st of 2023, Safeco mailed a written notice to the owners of the property advising them that this board would hold a hearing today at this time to consider the adoption of a resolution of necessity to acquire the rights by eminent domain. And again, this last slide just shows the exhibits that are attachment to that resolution. Exhibits A and B is a description and plat map of the proposed fee area, and Exhibits C and D is a description and plat of the proposed temporary construction easement. So as with the previous property that was discussed, even though we have not reached an agreement with this property owner, if the board chooses to adopt this resolution, it in no way stops us from negotiating with this property owner all the way through to a judgment is rendered. So this is just saying that the property is required for the project and gives us the authority to move forward with the eminent domain process, and will allow us to deliver on our obligations to the Army Corps of Engineers on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? You can go ahead and speak.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy. This is in my area. I don't want to fault staff for any reason, or the chair, as Mr. Horst did come here earlier, but we didn't take his comment before he had to go back to work. I am a new Safeco board member, and staff has done a phenomenal job of trying to bring me up to speed, but this is a delicate and intricate issue that is federal, state, many parties. I am still have questions and don't necessarily feel comfortable based off of a question earlier that a fellow board member, Trustee Baines, asked in regards to needing 150 feet, 100 feet, you know, and what was narrowly taken in the pocket versus here because of the property. So I hope conversations can happen. My no vote on this goes back to not that 150 feet is justified or not justified. I don't feel that I have been given the level of expertise to really understand the 150 feet, as well as meeting the justification for significant improvements or contract meeting obligations. But it doesn't mean that my fellow board members should be following my direction. This is just something being new that I have a much higher level in hearing from Valley View Acres, and I don't feel like I can fully answer them, so I don't feel it's appropriate for me to move forward in voting yes on this.
Thank you, Director. And once again, I will state that it was regrettable that I did not know that he could not stay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, with that then, I will open up the public hearing. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board at this time on this item?
Can I just ask?
Well, you'd have to come to it's a public hearing, so you're of course welcome to come to the podium. We have to have it on the record.
With all due respect, and
your name,
Lisa,
please.
Jack Broadbent.
Thank you.
With all due respect, and Lisa, I agree. The presentation's kind of lacking. The one, and maybe you could help explain just so a member of the public can understand what you're up to, the taking of the land of 150 feet and then just next to it, there's a full house. And I don't know what's happening to that property. If you've already purchased that property, taken the house out, seems like the levee should be wide and equal all the way through, and I'm getting the sense it's coming back and forth on property lines. So that's my question. I appreciate it. Didn't mean to take too much time, but I am concerned about the construction techniques that are being used. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Again, I think for the engineering portion of the project, John Bassett would probably be better suited to answer that.
Mr. Bassett.
So on the, I think Exhibit D, it shows that this acquisition is 100 feet wide from the center line, not the 150 feet, which was the prior resolution the board adopted. The property to the north, as Mr. Avdis, Director Avdis indicated, is his property. And again, the acquisition on that parcel is slightly narrower than this parcel because the house and the garage are much closer to the levee. And we are not acquiring Mr. Avdis's house or the garage.
Okay, any questions from the board on that? All right. Thank you, Mr. DeGroot. Is there any other member of the public who would like to address the board at this time? We will close the public hearing. What's the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to ditto my comments from the previous item, and with that, I would go ahead and move this item as well.
Okay, is there a second? Second from Vice Chair Holloway. Please call the roll.
Director Desmond? Aye. Director Frost?
Aye.
Director Hume?
Aye.
Chairman Kennedy? Director Nava?
Aye.
Director Jennings?
Yes.
Director Kaplan? No. Director Talamentes? Aye. Director Holloway? Aye. Director Johns?
Yes.
Director Avdis recused himself. Director Baines?
Aye.
Director Conant?
Aye.
Motion passes with 11-member approval. Shall I go and get Mr. Avdis?
I believe he left. Went out. Next item is item number 16.
Presenting the fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget.
And I will make note that Mr. Avdis is on the Budget Committee and was present for the meeting.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Jason Campbell, Deputy Executive Director. Once we have the presentation ready, I'll get started. Just a quick reminder, this is an informational item only. The intent is every May we bring to you a draft of the proposed budget so that you can review it, provide comments, so when we do the public hearing in June, that we can bring forward a budget that your board is familiar with and hopefully ready to move forward with. So again, today is informational of the staff's proposed budget. As we prepare for each budget year, the SAFCA board has adopted a resolution that has modified our budget process so that we can quickly get through budget without multiple budget hearings and multiple bringing back the final budget in September and a number of things. So what we do is this presentation. So we prepare a draft proposed budget for you to review with the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is made up of a number of your board members. It's a pretty quick and good discussion to identify our project efforts as well as the various line items within the budget that may have some question. Goes over the funding sources, and you'll see a bunch of that today. Again, the Finance Committee reviewed with our staff the proposed budget on the 5th of May. We also have published the first notice of public hearing for our annual budget for the fiscal year 2024. The board informational session is today. And as we move forward, the second notice of public hearing going into the Sacramento Bee will be published in just a couple weeks. And then ultimately on June 15th at our board meeting with you, hopefully we will be able to pass the budget very quickly. So again, as we move forward, oops, wrong way. My apologies. As we move forward, we talk about the different budget assumptions that we build into this annual budget. Of course, project priorities, our priorities are pretty clear. We hope that they don't change, and we do not have any other fiscal impacts coming from the project perspective, including we want to make sure that we're advancing those projects on schedule and as planned. As we move forward, our continued adequate progress discussion is very important, as it's been identified in multiple discussions recently, and also in the discussion that we've had on each one of these property transactions today, but also on the legislation that's going forward. So our budget assumes that we are moving forward and advancing the projects as planned. Safeca's revenue assumptions, we have state revenues that come back from cost share agreements with the state of California's Central Valley Board and the Department of Water Resources. We advance a tremendous amount of work for real estate, as well as construction and consultant efforts on the federal projects and other projects that we have agreements with the state to perform. And then we also make sure that we are understanding what's going on with the real estate world and the financial world. So our stable development impact fee revenues you'll see are very consistent year over year. And then we anticipate that our assessment revenues will continue to be stable as well. So overall, the Safeca budget is $106 million of annual expenditures that are expected for fiscal year 24. The $106 million is made up of the $31 million of fund balance that we're anticipating, as well as revenues of about $54 million going forward. Most of that is actually revenues from state reimbursements for the work that we're advancing. And then total reserve releases from our existing reserve accounts from different sources, and we'll go through that in a minute, of about $20 million. And in summary, our proposed, not in summary of the presentation, sorry, in summary of our appropriations, you can see that the lion's share of all of our expenditures are based on projects and acquisitions for projects. So real estate, utility relocations, and other things to advance the flood control efforts. So again, we have provisions for reserves that we work into the budget depending on which fund it's coming from. You see that's a small 8% portion of our overall expenditures. Salaries and benefits is only 4% of our overall expenditures planned. Services and supplies and the other things make up, that you can see here, we have contingencies built in. These things make up the rest of the $106 million that is being proposed. So Safeca's funding is a little bit different than maybe some other entities. Safeca's funding is all based on fees and assessments. We do not receive any tax revenues. So our fund, 325A, also known as the Operations and Maintenance Assessment District Number 1, functions as our general fund. It's an assessment district that's under water code, so it goes on for perpetuity and is a fixed rate that is assessed to the property owners based on the impacts of flood, whether it's dry zone or wet zone, and that's another story. But again, this is our general fund that operates for our staff and other certain services and supplies that you'll see in a minute. The development impact fee is exactly what it is. It's an impact fee that's charged to properties and infrastructure improvement, capital improvements that go on, as well as different housing and building permit fees. Again, those fees go towards different project efforts, and the intent is to advance beyond 200-year level of protection using these funds, as well as other studies and things that we can accomplish as we move. So 325G is the Natomas Basin Local Assessment District. This is specific to the Natomas area. This fund is basically at this point a pass-through for debt service that has been in place for several years to support the Natomas projects, particularly the work that was performed by Safeca and then now being performed by the Corps of Engineers in Natomas. And then the lion's share of our revenues come from the Consolidated Capital Assessment District, number 2, which is the fund that you'll see most of the project funding going forward. So the overall spend in our O&M assessment is broken down in the appropriations you can see. the overall expenditures in all of our funds. You can see again these various line items in a tabular form. 106 million in appropriations and financing 106 million from different sources. As we move into the O&M assessment district specifically, appropriations are broken down to their various categories. The $8.3 million is offset by revenues of assessment revenues as well as interest and some reserve releases. And then as we move forward, we have an obligation based on government code to identify our salary listing as well as the number of full-time equivalent positions. SAFCA has a whopping 18.5 employees, and this is the salary schedule for the different positions that we have. And if there are any questions about this, I can be happy to answer them. All right. So getting really into the meat of things, we will talk about a little bit of the projects. I know you hear about our projects quite a bit. Just a quick reminder, most of the work that is being done is federal projects that we participate in with other parties. So the federal government in general pays 65% of the projects as they move forward. The state has a 24.5% share of those costs, and SAFCA has a roughly 10.5% share of those costs. As we move forward with the projects, the state and SAFCA balance between the two, and that's why you see the reimbursements that you'll see in these next slides. So overall, project expenses are anticipated to be about $59.5 million in fiscal year 24. You can see that 87% of the effort that's up there is between the federal projects with a little bit of other studies and things that are happening as well as some support for the state. We'll get into the line items of these pretty quickly. But as you can see, the American River Common Features Natomas is almost 50% of our overall expenditures next year, and that is based on real estate and cost share acquisition to the project as well as supporting the Corps for their efforts. American River Common Features 2016, we have the same scenario. We're primarily funding cash to the Corps as well as utility relocations and real estate acquisitions to keep the project rolling. As we move forward and we see changes in how, or as Rick indicated earlier in his presentation, we're seeing that the projects are getting bigger and they're moving a little bit faster, but we also have another step and series of projects that are going to hopefully come forward to get us to 500-year level of protection. So I'm going to roll down from upper American River and reservoirs all the way down through the bypass in some of these projects real quick. So again, we're trying to achieve 500-year level of protection. So as we move forward, we have studies and some preliminary design on upper reservoirs that hopefully we can work on getting some FERO and some other activity to help us improve above Folsom Dam. Here at Folsom Dam, you can see for this next year, it's not a huge spend. There's a number of activities that have already taken place, but we're continuing to foster those efforts. So the joint federal project effort is still moving forward. The project is in closeout phase. There's a number of things still happening, but we have the temperature control shutters that are in design and hopefully going to be kicking off in the next couple of years. So we're still continuing to support the Corps of Engineers with about $1 million of expenditures projected next year. And then on the Folsom Dam raise, as Rick indicated earlier, it's in full swing and moving very well. And we continue to support the Corps through many different types of utility relocations as well as contractual support with consultants. So another $1.5 million is anticipated. So moving on down the river and down into the biggest authorization, again, specifically all project components of the American River Common Features 2016 in fiscal year 2024 is anticipated to be about $18.6 million. So as we go forward with the Corps' efforts, we continue to provide cash to the Corps for their contractual obligations, and we also continue to provide the lands, easements, rights of way, relocations, all the other fun stuff that goes with it. The Natomas Basin, we've talked a lot about Natomas today as well as every other day of the week. The reality is that Natomas is our biggest spend in the fiscal year coming. We have about $29 million worth of effort, and that is in support of the Corps as well as most definitely the biggest real estate of the portfolio. And then, of course, we are continuing to advance efforts in the Yellow Bypass to try to get us to 500-year level of protection. And we have study work that in support of the Corps of Engineers in the state of California that we're helping advance, and we anticipate between that and some other water-related efforts for getting to 500-year, about $1.8 million worth of effort to keep going. So real quick, I'll go through these really fast. So development impact fee, overall, we have about $22.5 million of expenditures. You can see some of that as a provision for reserve. On the bottom portion there, the financing piece, you can see we have a prior year fund balance of about $15 million. And then we anticipate about $6.4 million in development impact fee revenue next year. In the Natomas Basin Local Assessment District, we have some reserves. We're transferring, we've funded these interfund transfers between the Natomas Basin Assessment District into CC82. This is a setup for us to be able to reimburse CC82 for the activities for Natomas efforts, and these funds are just a pass-through from, like I said, Natomas into CC82 for those construction efforts. We continue to have some reserves beyond what is being transferred this year. And that actually is written into your board report, and you can see what the reserves are for each one of those funds. And then, of course, CC82, you can actually see the direct line items here are $60.4 million overall. The 41 and 45 series of expenses, you can see $14 and $35 million, once again, is the lion's share of the overall expenses for the agency. As we roll into next fiscal years, we're going to be identifying additional resources to supplement and make sure that these projects can continue as we basically draw down those reserves. So you'll see maybe a few more of those transactions in the future. And overall, this is the sheet that identifies all the capital projects, the various funds that are funding those projects for the proposed budget in fiscal year 24. I could go through the detailed line items if you'd like. So our
Fantastic presentation.
So again, no action required today. They already turned me off. That's great. No action required today. Any questions or comments from your board would be very much welcome.
All right, any questions or comments? I'll also ask of the public if there's any comments or questions. Seeing none, hearing none. Mr. Campbell, I will say the same thing that I said to you in the committee meeting, and that's that I've seen over the years the progress in changing the way that we present the budget, and I mean, it's a complex budget, and you and your staff put it in a way that's easily understood, makes perfect sense, so well done and thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Is that our business for the day? Okay, then I thank you all, and we are adjourned.